This is an AI-generated deep dive based on the original German transcript of the Mr. Futsal podcast, episode 224, originally hosted by Sebastian Rauch and Dr. Daniel Weimar, titled Strong U19 Debut in Porec Isenburg United, Gears Up International and National News.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Yes,
So our mission today is to pull out the factual insights from episode 224 of the Mr. Futsal podcast, which is hosted by Sebastian Rauch and Dr. Daniel Weimar. And we're skipping the preview, skipping the pleasantries.
Right to it.
Yeah, we're jumping straight into the global futsal scene, chronological order. So starting right at the absolute peak in Spain, FC Barcelona just secured the Spanish championship.
Yeah, winning the fourth game of that best-of-5 series against El Pozo Murcia.
6-4, right?
Exactly, 6-4. And, I mean, you have to remember, Spain is probably the most grueling domestic futsal environment on the planet. Winning a title there isn't just about, tactics.
It's a grind.
It is an absolute war of attrition. El Pozo pushed Barcelona to the absolute brink in that series. And when you reach Game 4 with stakes that high, the physiological load on these guys is just insane. Managers have to completely overhaul their rotation strategies.
So Barca getting back to the Champions League under those conditions, that really says something about their depth, right? Like their domestic academy system.
Oh, 100%. It's a testament to how they build from the ground up.
Which is the European gold standard, organic foundational growth. But then, if you look at the Nusara Nantara Futsal League in Indonesia...
Oh, wow. Yeah. Complete opposite.
It's a totally different philosophy. I mean, the franchise mechanics over there, it's like the Wild West.
It really is jarring. In Europe, the whole ecosystem is driven by promotion and relegation, right? You earn your spot. In Indonesia, the main way you move up seems to be, just raw capital injection.
Yeah, exactly. The source material highlights two newly promoted clubs that just perfectly illustrate this. So Ashaf Asahan, All-Star Samarinda, they get promoted, and literally instantly, they are completely rebranded.
Right, to Kultum All-Star Futsal Club.
Yep. The corporate brand just ate the club identity overnight, but the Rabbit FC Jakarta situation is even crazier.
Oh, the financial meltdown.
Right. So early in the season, they supposedly weren't paying their players. Complete disaster. Then, right in the middle of the season, a businessman from Mimika Central Papua swoops in, buys the operating license, and renames the whole thing Mimika Futsal Club.
See, that's a pure American-style franchise model, but operating at hyper speed.
Yeah.
It completely ignores the 50+1 rule we have in German sports.
Where the club members have to keep majority voting rights.
Right, exactly. The 50+1 rule exists specifically to prevent that kind of hostile corporate takeover. Now, sure, the Indonesian system brings in rapid cash. It saves a club like Rabbit FC from bankruptcy.
But at what cost, right?
Exactly. Total alienation of the local fan base.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't build generational supporters if your club's identity is just a tradable asset that can be bought on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that friction between, manufactured brands and organic grassroots connection, it actually leads into this awesome story out of Brazil. So there's this Brazilian futsal goalie, Fernando Lopes Pereira.
Everyone calls him Careca.
Careca, right. He has 400,000 Instagram followers. He's, taking pictures with Neymar. But what's super interesting in the sources is that they aren't praising him for being a celebrity. They're praising the raw utility of his content.
Yeah, because social media sports content is usually a trap. It's so hyper-produced.
Oh, totally.
You see these goalkeepers diving off trampolines or deflecting tennis balls blindfolded. It gets likes, sure, but it has absolutely zero application in a real match.
And Careca just completely rejects that. He films his tutorials right on the open-air concrete courts of Brazil. You can practically feel the heat off the concrete in the videos.
Yeah, and he breaks down highly functional techniques.
Like the slide step to the far post, right?
Exactly. And it's his biomechanical breakdown that elevates it. He doesn't just show you a block. He dissects the geometry. He'll explain how doing a slide step with your arm raised versus your arm down, how that fundamentally changes the passing lanes for the attacker.
That's elite professional level spatial awareness.
Right. And he's translating it into this free, totally accessible format for any kid practicing on a public court.
He's basically building tactical infrastructure for free. Meanwhile, you have federations struggling to do that with millions of dollars.
Oh, the U.S. national team.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The USA is trying to make this massive leap by bringing in Hernan Garcias as their full-time head coach. And, the guy is an Argentine futsal legend. 35 years of elite experience, Boca Juniors.
He's got the resume.
He definitely does. But I kind of have to question the mechanics of it. If you just parachute an Argentine coach into the American system, doesn't his lack of familiarity with the grassroots level kind of undercut his tactical genius?
It does. It's the ultimate shortcut approach, and honestly, your skepticism is totally warranted. Futsal relies so much on local sporting shorthand.
What do you mean by shorthand?
Well, an importing coach can come in and instantly raise the tactical floor of the senior team. Implement sophisticated set pieces, better defensive blocks. But a national team coach only gets the players for these tiny international windows.
Right, a few weeks a year.
Exactly. So if that coach doesn't fundamentally understand the unique athletic culture, like the American college soccer pipeline or the specific developmental hurdles in the U.S. domestic leagues, they can't diagnose the root causes of the team's issues.
It's like buying a world-class architect, but if he doesn't know the local building codes, the house is just going to fall down.
Exactly. You have to understand the foundation.
And this whole dynamic importing top-tier talent, instead of developing it locally, we're seeing that exact same arms race playing out domestically in Germany right now.
Oh, Isenburg United is the prime example of this.
Yeah. Isenburg is making these massive, highly aggressive moves. They are signing national-level players straight out of Hamburger SV. We're talking Grunberg, Wiegels, Nevismirzai, Stankovic.
Huge names for that level.
Massive names. But the logistical reality here is just staggering to me. These guys aren't moving. They are going to keep living in Hamburg and commute all the way across the country to Isenburg, which is down near Frankfurt, just for Friday and Saturday practices and matches.
I mean, the economic and cultural ripple effects of doing that are profound.
How do you even forge a resilient locker room culture on, like, a WhatsApp group chat and a Friday night train ride?
You really can't.
Right. If your star players don't live in the community, they are interacting with the academy kids, they aren't part of the daily life of the club, you aren't building a team, you're just renting a roster to chase a championship.
And the sources point out the irony here, too. Isenburg is right next to Frankfurt.
Which has a huge talent pool.
Exactly. A highly developed local youth talent pool managed by Anton Miller. So you have to ask, why ignore the talent in your own backyard just to subsidize cross-country train tickets for established guys?
Because developing youth takes years, right? It's unglamorous. It requires patience. And bringing in Hamburg's talent gets you immediate results on the scoreboard.
It does. But the danger is the financial bubble it creates across the German leagues. If clubs start normalizing these massive travel stipends and wages for commuting players, it artificially inflates the cost of running a club for everyone else.
It detaches the success from the actual organic growth of the sport in the region.
Exactly.
And we are seeing this rapid professionalization further down the pyramid, too. Look at DJK Vermtal-Planegg.
Yeah, stepping up from the Bezirksliga.
Right, the local district level, up into the Bayernliga state tier. And they are already operating like a top-flight team. Their media production is phenomenal, and they are importing all these players with backgrounds in the Bosnian Premier League and other Balkan leagues. Radulovic, Vukcevic, Frič, Radvanovic.
Which, to be fair, undeniably raises the competitive ceiling. And the technical quality of the Bayernliga goes up.
Sure.
When you inject players who have an Eastern European futsal education into a German state league, the speed of play naturally increases. But again, you have to ask the same question. Are they building an enduring institution or just assembling a temporary all-star team?
Thankfully, there are some counter-movements in the sources that are entirely focused on the foundations. Yanis Karamizos just extended his contract at Holzpfosten-Schwert after getting his UEFA Futsal B license.
Right, and he's specifically anchoring that project to youth development.
Exactly. But honestly, the most fascinating developmental tactic mentioned is what Lucas Crew is doing.
Well, the networking.
Yes, Crew is actively networking with Leo Higuita,
The legendary goalkeeper for Kairat Almaty.
and the Kazakhstan national team.
Yeah.
Like, instead of importing a player's physical presence, Crew is tapping into their tactical brain.
It's a completely different, highly effective approach to importing knowledge.
Right. Establishing direct communication with global icons who revolutionize specific roles like Higuita's world-class sweeping and distribution, that is an incredibly potent, completely untapped resource for German futsal.
And it bypasses the financial bubble completely.
Yes.
You don't need a massive transfer budget to send game film to a global expert and ask for an hour of their time for a tactical consultation. That kind of elite networking accelerates the domestic learning curve, but it doesn't bankrupt the club.
Speaking of accelerating the learning curve, the sport's visibility in Germany just took a massive leap. Julian Lucas Schaefer.
the defining voice of the early German futsal streams.
Literally the guy who commentated the inaugural futsal Bundesliga match. He's now been tapped to commentate World Cup and Euro highlight summaries for ZDF.
That is vital. Getting futsal onto a major national broadcast network like ZDF is huge. But getting it narrated by someone who actually understands the nuanced mechanics of the sport, instead of just an outdoor football commentator guessing at the rules, that validates the sport for a mainstream audience.
But mainstream validation requires a robust domestic league structure underneath it, right, to capture that new interest.
Exactly.
And the sources highlight Hannover 96 as having maybe the most sustainable structural model in the country. They run a unique three-team system. Team 1 is the competitive flagship in the regional liga. Team 3 is just a pure hobby squad for the community. But Team 2...
Team 2 is where the structural genius is.
Yeah, explain that, because they only play in tournaments, right?
Right. They exclusively play in tournaments. They completely opted out of regular league play. And that is a brilliant solution to a very specific geographical problem.
Lower Saxony being huge.
Geographically massive. If you force a newly formed developmental second team into a sprawling regional league, the travel demands and the weekend commitments will just grind them down. It leads to player burnout and roster collapse.
So by pivoting to a tournament-only schedule...
They provide a highly competitive environment. You get these intense bursts of play, but without the relentless logistical burden. It ensures they actually retain their players.
It's the ultimate pragmatic approach to grassroots growth. So if we take this whole domestic landscape, the commuting mercenaries, the state league professionalization, the pragmatic club structures like Hanover, and we extract the absolute best youth talent from that chaos, what happens when they face elite international competition?
And that brings us to the main event.
The German U19 national team's debut in Porec, Croatia.
At the Futsal Week Summer Cup, their first official, publicly visible proving ground. And man, the scheduling could not have been more unforgiving.
Seriously. They opened the tournament against Spain,
who eventually won the entire competition.
Right. And Spain handed Germany a brutal double-digit loss right out of the gate.
Which is tough. But when a brand new program faces a nation like Spain, where futsal is woven into their sporting DNA from birth, the tactical disparity is glaring.
Oh, Spain just exploits every micro-hesitation.
Exactly. It was a harsh but necessary calibration to the speed of elite international play.
And a loss of that magnitude, a double-digit loss that can easily fracture a teenager's psychology.
Completely.
But the mental resilience these guys showed was incredible. In their very next match against Czechia, they go down 0-2 early.
You'd think the ghosts of the Spain match are looming over them.
Right, but instead of folding, they storm back to win 5-4. And then they follow that up by dismantling Malta 4-1 and absolutely dominating Serbia 4-0 to secure 10th place overall.
The psychological pivot from that Spain defeat to the Serbia victory is remarkable. But the true revelation here for me lies in the tactical systems the coaching staff used. The contrast between the systems explains exactly why they succeeded, but it also exposes their deepest structural flaw.
The tactical breakdown in the sources is so fascinating. They detail two distinct systems Germany ran, the 4-0 block and the 3-1 block, and the performance disparity between the two was massive.
Night and day.
When Germany used the 4-0 block, it was the absolute bedrock of their success. It was fluid, they dictated the tempo, and that specific setup generated almost all of their scorer points.
Because the 4-2 system thrives on constant interchangeable mobility.
Right.
All four outfield players are rotating, they're creating passing lanes just through sheer dynamic movement. It suits players with raw pace and a high work rate.
But when they shifted to the 3-1 block,
the attack completely stalled.
Which makes perfect sense when you look at the mechanics of the 3-1. That system is entirely reliant on a specialized role, the pivot.
Right.
And to be an effective pivot in international futsal, you have to play with your back to the goal, absorb immense physical pressure, and have elite tight space control to distribute the ball. You can't just take a big physical striker from outdoor football and stick him at the top of a futsal formation.
Exactly, because outdoor football relies on large spatial margins. A futsal pivot operates in a phone booth.
Right.
If you don't have that highly specific, club-trained spatial awareness to hold off a defender and roll them in a fraction of a second, the entire attacking axis of that 3-1 system breaks down. And Germany simply doesn't have a deep club-trained pool of pivots yet. That's why it looks so disjointed.
It's like handing a world-class guitarist a violin and asking them to lead a symphony. The fundamental physics of the instrument are just different.
Great analogy.
But where that specialized training lacked, raw athleticism completely compensated, especially from the players training at the Gütersloh base. We have to shout out Leon Staub, Paul Ratke, who anchored that 4-0 block, and Leon Karasu.
Their statistical footprint on the tournament was immense.
It really was. Out of Germany's 14 total goals across the tournament, those 3 players alone were directly involved in 9 of them.
Wow.
And all 3 scored their first national team goals. But the praise for Leon Staub in the sources was particularly notable. He didn't just rely on speed, he played with his veteran composure.
Even against Spain.
Yeah. During that opening massacre against Spain, Staub was noted as the single German player who successfully isolated and beat a Spanish defender in a pure one-on-one situation.
Which demonstrates that the raw individual technical ceiling of these players is exceptionally high. They have the physical tools to compete. The challenge is entirely structural. And, ironically, the structural challenges of the German team were perfectly mirrored by the sheer organizational chaos of the tournament itself.
Oh man, the logistics in Porec sounded like an absolute nightmare. Daniel Weimar, the co-host of the Mr. Futsal podcast, was so frustrated by the setup that he outright boycotted the live stream.
And his anger is completely justified when you look at the economics of it.
Seriously. The organizers locked the stream behind a paywall, charging an outrageous €5, not for a tournament pass, but per individual match.
Which is wild. A premium price point implies a premium broadcast product. But the execution was glaringly amateur.
Zero commentary, no replays. The hall itself is described as shabby, just decorated with a few cheap, haphazard banners.
And the social media management.
Baffling. They were posting graphics advertising the semifinals while the actual final was happening. The podcast hosts rightfully questioned who is extracting the profit from this, especially since the German Federation seemed initially unaware of the aggressive paywall.
It perfectly illustrates the paradox of international youth futsal right now. You have this elite, world-class athletic potential on the court, surrounded by administrative infrastructure that feels like a local weekend rec league.
Right.
Yet, despite the opaque organization and the terrible broadcast, the sporting value extracted from those matches for the players is invaluable. The crucible of international competition exposes flaws that domestic training just cannot replicate.
Which brings us to the most critical, overarching takeaway from this entire analysis. We just broke down Germany's incredible resilience, the dominance of their 4-0 block, the standout performances from guys like Staub. But here's the reality check. Over half of the players on this U19 national team roster do not actually play for dedicated futsal clubs.
They are primarily outdoor football players moonlighting in the sport.
Right. And that statistic is both terrifying and immensely promising. It explains the collapse of the 3-1 system. You can't instinctively understand the micro-tactics of a pivot if you only play futsal during specialized federation camps.
Exactly. The ultimate call to action from the experts analyzing this tournament is that these athletes must transition into full-time domestic futsal clubs. They need the week-in, week-out repetition of specialized coaching to convert that raw outdoor athleticism into refined futsal intelligence.
It all connects back to the central theme of today's deep dive. Whether you're looking at the corporate franchising in Indonesia, Isenburg United importing commuters from Hamburg, or the U.S. trying to parachute in an Argentine mastermind, the lesson is constant.
Capital injection and raw athleticism raise your immediate floor, but they can't replace the unglamorous work of building infrastructure.
You have to pour the concrete, you have to endure the €5 streams with no commentary to get your youth the reps they desperately need.
The shortcut is always an illusion. Sustainable success requires a localized, deeply integrated sporting culture.
And that leaves us with a genuinely provocative thought for you to carry forward. We just analyzed a German U19 squad composed largely of teenagers who aren't even fully entrenched in club futsal yet. They suffered a crushing psychological blow against the best team in the world, adapted in real time, and bounced back to dismantle established programs like Serbia.
It's incredible.
Right. So if this is the damage they can do on raw talent and limited specialized training, what is the actual terrifying ceiling of this generation once that domestic grassroots infrastructure is fully built out?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mechanics and the madness of global futsal. Keep analyzing those foundations, and we will catch you next time.